The rich man has many friends. The poor man has faithful friends. You're welcome, viewers. We are going to our tablets today again. Uh, Lagos life. Mm. But let me give my own story or story. In the 80s, I found Lagos to be very interesting. See, in those days, if you come across two people fighting, a buyer and a seller, walk your way. It could be the buyer's, yes, the buyer's fault. Because, for instance, you would ask for the price of something, you'll be told, and you continue reducing the prices until the seller gets angry. For instance, you want to buy something and it says 120 naira. The the buyer will say reduce. Let me pay 110. The seller will say bring money. Those who went to Lagos will be laughing now. Then the buyer will say 105 uncle. That he has reduced it from 110 to 105. After the agreement has made, oh, the seller will say bring money. Then the buyer will say, what about 100? The seller will say bring money. Then he will say, what about 90 cities? So they will transact business like that until annoyance sets in. And the buyer gets frustrated and they fight. So that's Lagos life. I've not seen this anywhere. So you see, the seller keeps on reducing, and the buyer keeps on. Sorry, the buyer keeps on reducing, and the seller keeps on agreeing. You see, I don't know. I've not seen this style of marketing before. So that is Lagos life. Mm. Anyway, today's paper is Lagos weekend. Sadly, I've lost much of it, but what I have here are pages 7 to 10, 7, 8 years, pages 7 to 10, and this year, Lagos weekend, Lagos weekend, and the center pages are also here. Oh, I have to cover them up. Then the last page here. Okay, Namshi. Uh, this is foreign news. Wife says she will bring love child up as her own. Excuse me. I don't know why this season came while I was doing this video. It should have come later. Uh, Wife says she will bring love child up as her own. Like I say, it's foreign news. Then the title is Tori from Oyibo land. Tori means story or news. Tori from Oyibo land. And Oyibo land means the white man's land. So story from the white man's land. Tori from Oyibo land. Romeo MP, Ron Brown's former mistress, has told of the night his wife, that's Tom Brown's wife, burst in on her at their secret hideout and later offered to bring up the couple's love child as her own. So the mistress had a child with the man, and the wife of the man has uh, offers to take care of that child, to take that child as her own. Mm. So teacher Nona Longdem, 39 revealed she turned up unexpectedly at the flat we shared and caught me in my 90 sitting on the floor. Ron was ab- Ron was abroad on a trip and I was on the telephone to to Heathrow to see what time his plane would arrive the next day. I will never forget the moment when his wife, May, opened the door, saw me, and demanded, Who? And demanded, Who the hell are you? I told her I'm Nona. She said, she said she suspected for a long time that he was having an affair. Nona, who was 49-year-old labor left-wingers mistress for 3 years, recalled. Uh, Eventually, I made us both a cup of tea and we discussed him. She told me, I made him what he is today. Yes, the wife told the mistress, I made him what he is today. Then she warned, You not have him Ron or Bob. It turned out Bob was their dog. We had an we had an easy dinner together, talking all the time about Ron. Then the following, afraid, subtitle afraid. In the early hours of the morning, when we both decided it was time to sleep, May insisted on having the bed, and I got the sofa. I thought of times Ron and I had made love in the bed. Sometimes he would actually talked. Sometimes he had actually talked. Oh, this. Okay, let me read what I see. Sometimes he actually talked on his phone to me. Yes, yes, it's right. He had talked on his phone to me while still making love to me. I, men are dangerous. We say women are dangerous. Men too are dangerous. Let me repeat that. Sometimes he actually talked on the phone to me, that's the wife, while still making love to me. Can you imagine that? I suppose it gave him a kick. That night I sleep that night I sleep with one eye open because I was rather afraid May might do something to me. So I think it should be I slept. In that night I slept, but here is written I sleep. Either the paper is mistaken or I'm mistaken. So let me go. I was rather afraid May might do something to me. She's a bit of a battle axe, but under different circumstances, I could have killed her. Mm, but under different circumstances, I could have killed her. The next morning, May said, You're not the first, and you won't be the last. She told me Ron had had 4 or 5 affairs. Oh my God. Leave your wife and go about having affairs like that. He's been lucky. Hmm? So let's continue. 4 or 5 affairs. Eventually, Ron phoned from the airport, and I had to tell him the bad news that his wife was there. He was very subdued and took an awful long time to make that journey from Heathrow to start London. She said, Ron brought me, she said, Ron brought me and I had a friend with me. Brought me and I had a friend with me. The 4 of us met in a pub near Ron's flat to discuss what to do about the child. It was then that made her It was then that May made her incredible offer. She said, Look, have the baby and I'll bring it up as mine. She said, Look, have the baby, have it, have the baby, and I'll bring it up as mine. I was dumbstruck. She told me she was anti-abortion and had been sterilized. She said she and Ron would officially adopt the child. Oh, I see. Ron's wife was sterilized. I think he was playing about to have a child. Mm. They committed themselves in marriage, and the woman wasn't having any children, and he wanted to have a child. Okay, next paragraph. May said she will stand by Ron. She told me, I will, she told me, I will never leave. She was telling me, I will never leave my husband. Eventually, with great sadness, I decided to have an abortion. Oh, when Ron took me along with the National Health Service clinic, sorry, new paragraph. When Ron took me along to the National Health Service clinic, he gave a false name, but the doctor recognized him. Amen. But the doctor recognized him. Then next title, subtitle, charming. He gave me no laugh or emotional support during what is a terrible ordeal for a woman. Ron promised to take care of all my bills while I was recuperating, but didn't. I was almost turned out on the streets. Oh, you know one thing about men, their mind is always on sex. Hmm? Mind is always on sex. Once you start it, that's all. Hmm? All promises are thrown back, are thrown behind them. Sorry. Uh-huh. Out on the streets. Nona told how she first met Brown on the terrace of the House of Commons, where she had once worked as a secretary to a select committee on education before returning to teaching. She said, Ron struck up a conversation with me. We had a drink at the bar. When we met again, he invited me for a meal. He was very charming. We went out several times, then back to his flat. He told me, by the way, I'm married, but we made love anyway. He told me, by the way, comma, I'm married, but we made love anyway. We also made love in the males only members bathrooms at the House of Commons. So in other words, the woman told the mistress that he was married, but the mistress didn't bother either. They made love all the same. So they say love is blind. Mm. When another MP overheard this, Ron got a reputation as the sex in the shower MP. So they were somebody heard them discussing in the bathroom, and he was nicknamed. Let me see the name. Read the name again. Uh-huh. When another MP overheard us, Ron got the reputation as the dash 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 sex dash in dash the shower. So sex in the shower MP. So he had the name as sex in the shower MP. Well, it wasn't a shower; it was a bath. I suppose our desire just got the better of us. Ron took me along a corridor and into some washrooms, all done out in mahogany and marble, and complete with towels and hairbrushes. He said, let's have a bath. We went into one of the cubicles and undressed. We started to make love in the bath, but the marble echoes and his and this other MP overhead will stop. I collided with him as I was leaving. I don't remember much about what he looked like because I was trying to rush away before he got a good look at me. But he was a dark suited man in his 50s, wearing heavy bone rimmed spectacles. When the newspaper when the newspaper stories came out, of course, Ron denied it, and so did I. Ron and I must have made love at least half a dozen times in the commons, either in the bathroom or in the office. Oh, yes. So the venue does not matter. Where there is love, venue matters not. Yes, where there is love, venue matters not. Uh, Either in the bathroom or in the office. It's not that rare. A lot of MPs make love to their secretaries or mistresses there. Ah, I see. I would say at least 40% of the MPs cheat on their wives. At first, I thought it was only in Ghana here women look for politicians. Women, okay, but these people were workers there. Mhm. In Ghana, I think the women go there, they are not workers, but they just go there to look for politicians. Uh, at first, Ron was a very considerate lover. He was also fun. He made me laugh and was terrific company. I loved him, adored him, full stop. Initially, it was all lust and laughter. There was a tremendous sexual attraction between us. Eventually, I effectively moved in with him at his London flat. I was his weekday wife. Ron would usually arrive at the flat on a Monday afternoon. All weekends, he went back to me in Edinburgh. Ah, bah. Hmm? Okay. At first, of course, she didn't know about me. He once laughed that May had said after they had their weekly sex session on a Sunday that should that should do you for the whole week. Yes, said that should do you for the whole week. Little did she realize that he was making love passionately all the rest of the week. See, after having laughed with the woman said, okay, you should be satisfied with this one for the whole week. But Ron is insatiable when it comes to sex. Okay, it was me who gave us our wake up call every morning. Mhm. She phoned around 8 every day, as regular as clockwork, to tell Ron what was in his post and what was going on in his constituency. May obviously did a great deal of work for him. I'll be up early in the morning and leave Ron just getting out of bed as I went off to teach a class of 3-year-olds at a school in Peckham. When I returned home to Ron's flat in Brixton at 5, he would often be at the cooker preparing a meal for us to eat later. He liked to cook, and usually he made something like a casserole. He was a good cook. He was a good cook. He would set off for the commons soon after I had come in from work. Sometimes I would have and change a quick bath and change and go with him. But more often than not, I'd meet him in the commons at about 8:30. We'd have a we'd have a drink together in the strangers bar for an hour or so. After all had voted in the debates, we, we'd go home on the tube. But he had this stupid habit which really annoyed me of leaving me alone. It did annoy me. And the habit is of leaving me alone in one tube carriage while he went and sat in another one. When we got back to the flat in Brixton, we would set the stew on whatever Ron had prepared earlier. We were last like an ordinary married couple, I suppose. But after the affair turned sour and she ditched him for another man, he burst into her flat in in I don't know whether it's South or Saint in St. Leonard's, Sussex, in a violent rage. And last weekend, the MP, and last weekend, the MP found himself in the dock. Oh, what a sad ending. And last weekend, the MP found himself in the dock. I think that's the end of the story. So, what is it all about? Does it affect sexual appetite of women? I think it's female circumcision. How it's seen in religious circles, yes, it's meant to concern myth and reality. Mm. Then, do you have to circumcise your girl? Question. What medical experts see, traditional point of view, as obtains in other lands, why your daughter should be left alone. This is all about female circumcision. I wouldn't call it female genital mutilation. No, I wouldn't call it. I would say female circumcision because in Africa it used to be common. When I was a child, the women used to dance in a ceremony where they were circumcised, and it was an occasion of pride. They were proud, and they will sing. Pardon me to say in Hausa, Anyanka Selamo, Anyanka Selamo, Anyanka Selamo. Our C has been uh, removed. Mm? Our C has been removed. Our C has been removed. Our C has been removed. Mm? Uh, so I would call it circumcision. It was well understood by everybody that uh, it's something that should be done to prevent waywardness of women. I believe the main reason to make women faithful. Mm. So I remember I had a friend in Lagos whose wife used to tell him anytime he approached her, kept on repeatedly kept on approaching her, she would ask the man, "Are you a dog?" You see, she would ask the man, "Are you a dog?" So you can imagine, even the husband, what if it's another man? He will just slap her or slap him. See, so there is some good in it. Mm. Lawrence fights for relations love. Sorry, that's my personal view. This is a story. Lawrence fights for relations wife. Okay. So this is a favorite column too. The title is "Do Not Say I Told You," mm? And it's Toli, uh, and he does this. Do not say I told you. Let's go to it. Uh, all those who witnessed what happened between you between you an apprentice hairdresser and her mistress were surprised at Ketu. Were surprised at Ketu. Paragraph. The hairdresser mistress, Mrs. Y, is a Bendelite and has been in the business for over 10 years now. She has established her business to the stage that she has up to 15 apprentices under her, under her management. Full stop. Her salon, they spell it as saloon, Saluon. I think it should be salon. Okay. Her saloon, let me read it as her saloon is the talk of the town at Ikosi area of Ketu. The Lagos weekend gathered that Mrs. Y is married to a Yoruba man from Oyo State, and the marriage was blessed with 5 children, 4 males and 1 female. Mr. Y, who is a successful businessman, took take good care of his wife and children, both morally and financially. Recently, Miss X, who comes from the same village with Mr. Y, has brought has, has brought to learn the trade. Was brought to learn the trade under Mrs. Y's care. Being a young girl with a good physical appearance, Mrs. Y not only took good care of her, but requested that she should leave she should live with their family, and which Miss X accepted happily. Even though all neighbors thought that Miss X was Mrs. Y's first daughter, even though even though all neighbors thought that Miss X was Mrs. Y's first daughter because she was being pampered with gifts and clothes. Recently, Mrs. Y traveled to London to purchase equipment for her business and took her children along. It was during this time that Mr. Y took the advantages. I think took the advantage to woo Miss Y, and which she accepted wholeheartedly. Of course, you can trust women or you can trust ladies. A big man giving me a signal for love, I accepted wholeheartedly. The Lagos weekend gathered that at a stage, some neighbors knew about their love affairs, but Mr. Y denied it when he was confronted by his friends. And when Mrs. Y arrived from her overseas trip and noticed the intimacy between her husband and Miss X, she then set a trap for them. The cat was let out of the bag last weekend when Mrs. Y informed her husband that she would be attending a friend's birthday party at Ikrodu, and which will be all night party. Hey, the man would say he has chopped Lotto. Mhm. On hearing this, Mr. Y informed Miss X about the new development and of how they would enjoy themselves, how they would enjoy themselves overnight. So that's why I don't like stolen things. Or I don't want lies. If you tell lies, you continue to be telling lies. Okay. On Friday evening, Mrs. Y left home for her proposed trip to Ikrodu, but returned unexpectedly some 2 hours later. And by this time, Mr. Y and Miss X were busy having sex. Mrs. Y opened the door with a spare key that was with her and raised an alarm, which attracted neighbors and passers-by. Yes, I think I remember this story. which, remember, which attracted neighbors and passers-by. After the disgrace suffered by Mr. Y, he announced to the disbelief of the crowd the immediate sacking of his wife and her replacement with Miss X. Abba! Oh man! And uh, his wife and her replacement with Miss X. The Lagos weekend gathered that the families of the couple were meeting to settle the matter and back his wife accept back his wife, who has since been living with a friend at Alapare. At Alapare. Mhm. And here is repeated that this is written in bold letters. Mrs. Y opened the door with a spare key that was with her and raised an alarm which attracted neighbors and passers-by. After the disgrace suffered by Mr. Y, he announced to the disbelief of the crowd the immediate sacking of his wife and her replacement with Miss X. I think there was space, so that portion was made in bold letters. Was repeated in bold letters. Uh, Wrestler runs amok. Wrestler runs amok. Uh, he now wears the crown of Agu. Agu means tiger. He now wears the crown of Agu in inverted commas tiger, usually given to the strongest wrestler in the land. But his name never echoed like that of Cornelius, his predecessor, for most believed he didn't deserve to win the bout in which he had killed Cornelius. Oh, in which he had killed Cornelius. His name was Agada. His name was Agada. He was a young man in his late 20s. Several weeks after his victory, he had taken over the three wives of his predecessor. Can you imagine that? As was the tradition of the land. He became a terror in the village. At the hearing of his name, every young woman ran into his home terrified. Ran, every young woman ran into her home terrified. I think so. New paragraph. New paragraph. So the predecessor was Cornelius, and Agatha conquered him and killed him and took over his family, took over his wives. Mm. So let's continue. One morning, as the sun was about to, to set, is it to rise or to set? One morning, as the sun was about to set, okay, let's go on. The sound of weeping and screaming rose from Agade's house. Was he dead? As many would have wished for those were the voices of his wives. He wasn't dead, but he would be if he was not attended to promptly. He was bruised all over, like one who had just had an encounter with a lion or some other wild animal, and his face like one who had seen a ghost. No one knew how it happened, for he went to bed the night before, a healthy man. Perhaps he had gone out in the middle of the night without the knowledge of his household, as many had suspected. The village herbalist came to his rescue, and several weeks later, he was back to his feet. He refused to tell the few who were bold enough to ask what really happened. A few days after his recovery, it happened again that in the middle of the night he ran out naked, screaming, his, his, his eyes shining like that of a cat, and bruises all over him like, like before. Even though he fell, he still rose and kept on running till he got to the town square. He started lamenting his story. He said his bruises were inflicted on him by Cornelius. Were inflicted on him by Cornelius, the late wrestler. The late wrestler Cornelius always attacked him in his dream and beat him up while he stood still, unable to move, but only wake up when he had already been dazed. Then he made a confession. The day before, the day before the great fight, he had found his way into the late opponent's secret water calabash and poisoned it with a substance to weaken him. Hmm. So that was how he did it. Many exclaimed as they booed him. Agada went about. Agada went about a crazy man for long, till the village witch doctors felt he had learned his lesson and decided to forgive him by helping him regain himself. Hmm, what a story. So I think that's how we end here. I forgot to remind listeners that the pictures of Ron's wife May, and the mistress Nona are here. So Ron's wife May is at the corner, bottom corner. Uh, I don't know if they are still alive. And then that of the mistress is a little bit above. Yes, that's it. Uh, that was the mistress. That was the mistress, Nona. And then this is me, the wife. But I don't think Ron's picture has been shown. We shall end here, listeners. Thank you very much for listening. May God bless you, Ilalekai, or rather viewers. I'm used to saying listeners. Ilalekai, bye bye.